co-host for this show. And today we're going to talk about a very morbid subject, death. Hey, you know what? As soon as you're born, you got to look at it this way. As soon as you're born, you start dying.
Yeah, that's...
How simple is that?
You're just dying for 90 plus years. How exciting.
Yeah, if you make it 90 years, you're hoping.
Right.
Every breath you take is one step closer to the grave, my brother.
Oh, at least you can have a laugh about it.
Well, you have to. I mean, what are you going to do? You have people that have the fear of, well, I'm not going to do this or not going to do that because it's risky. But if you don't take risks in life and don't put yourself out there, then what's the challenge? If you don't challenge yourself, you can't grow.
I don't even know where to go with it. Like, where do you want to start with this? Like, what's the the lead into it?
As far as death, I think that a lot of cultures have different ideas about death. I mean, I think it's because we don't talk about death primarily, or we sugarcoat, oh, they passed, or, they left this earth, or it's like people don't want to deal with it. And that's why it's so traumatic when it happens. I mean, we both know we both had family, we both had pets, that have passed. That's a hard one when you love your dog so much and they pass away, and you mourn the time that you spent with that animal that made you feel better. Animals are intuitive with our feelings, and hey man, I see you upset or you're crying or whatever, and they come over and lick your face or put a paw on you, go, hey buddy, I'm here. Like, no judgment.
Yeah, that's true.
But I think that at that point that we're not in mourn that they pass, because we certainly don't want people to suffer, people or animals to suffer. That's not what we want. But we mourn the relationship that we have with that individual or animal. So if you look at it that way.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. I was thinking, if I was to say, give me a description of the warrior's mindset of death, what would you think that would be?
Oh, it's a good day to die. Don't be afraid to die, man. You can't go into battle being afraid that you're going to die, because what's going to happen? That's going to be the most thing on your mind, and you're going to be attracted to death. Not that you're causing it, but it's going to make you make mistakes. Right. You have to be a free mind going into any kind of battle or situation. Could I die? Yes, I could. I could get seriously injured, but you can't go in with that mindset.
Right.
Because that's going to hinder how you're going to react. And may prevent you from getting away or taking care of a situation. How do you feel about that?
Yes. I was thinking kind of in a more, I don't want to say granular level, because I guess more of something someone could understand is the idea of, like, if you go into a knife fight, it's like, hey, you're going to get cut.
Yes, exactly.
It's kind of the similar thing. It's like, if you find yourself there, just know you're going to get cut. It's going to happen. So I think it's kind of the same thing of, like, if you find yourself in a situation, you might die. Sorry. Like, sorry, not sorry, I guess. But you might, you got to be ready for whatever happens. But don't, not to not think about it. You have to be like, hey, this is definitely something that can happen. But in that kind of protector mindset of, it's like, it's better me than the person I'm protecting, I guess, in a way.
Right. So there's some good quotes that come to mind. One by Sun Tzu is, don't take on a fight that you can't win. So that's a pretty cool
Pretty straightforward, yeah.
What's the other one? Oh, I'd rather be a warrior walking through a garden than a gardener walking through a war. That's a good one. Yeah.
That's a good one.
Have you heard that one before?
I've heard something similar to that, but not that exact wording, I don't think.
Yeah. So, I mean, that sums it up a lot. Isn't it funny with a lot of the things that I read, because I love reading about warrior culture and samurais and monks and warrior monks and other things like that. is that at the heart of it, you train a lot. So there's a lot of self introspection. There's a lot of meditation. Martial arts is huge meditation because you're letting go of your mind to a certain aspect. As you have that mind body connection, which we've talked about in the past. So and then if you're letting go of the outside world and you're going through this process, then you have less stress. You know, you're building your body up, you're building up your spirit, all these things, that all this energy that you're building your chi, which a lot of people don't really understand. What's chi? I say, tell people, hey, I'm sending you some healing chi or some positive chi. Well, what is it? It's like, is it like some special thing?
It's soup in a thermos.
Yeah, it's soup in a thermos. I like that. Yeah, I mean, chi is a special thing because it's your life. It's life force. You're manifesting a life force, and that you're emitting that. You're giving that energy to somebody. Yeah, it's kind of like a prayer in a way. Yeah, prayers are chi, if you look at it that way. You know, we live in a Judeo-Christian nation. Still, I don't care whatever the people say.
Yeah.
And but you have teachers, like Buddha is a teacher. He's not a religious figure, not a religious icon or anything. He's a teacher. There's Christians that are Buddhists. They believe in that philosophy. And if you look at popular sayings that we've heard growing up, like do unto others like you would do for yourself, or what, I know I bastardized that, but
something.
I mean, it's true. That's a very Buddhist type of statement.
Yeah.
Like treat others the way you want to be treated. You know, walk softly along this world and help people when you can. And you don't go out and seek praise for helping people. You know, if you're going to do it, just do it. Now, I know that gets away from the death conversation, but...
See, lightness now. We're back into the... So, yeah, bring it back. Murder and death and all that stuff. Yay. Yeah, I had a topic or like a point I was going to bring in, but then I totally forgot because we moved away.
Was it about death?
I think it was kind of a mix between death and the warrior mindset thing.
Oh, okay.
But maybe we'll come back to it once I remember it, if it comes back up. And then I thought of something else too in the meantime that I had to write down for.
Write it down. Comes up. So that's when we have a lot of people feel bad about somebody that's lived a long life. If you live 80, 90 years, man, you've probably had a good life. Now, there's 2 dates on the side of a dash, right? In the graveyard. One's the year you're born, and one's the year that you died. So how much life did you put into that dash? You think about it that way. Like, how much living did you do? Did you play sports? Did you study martial arts? Did you do music? Did you do art? What did you do to enrich yourself? Did you go out there and have a lot of friends or just a few close ones? Did you find a spouse, regardless of whatever your preference is, and build a life with that person, and have kids and go after your dreams? If we don't have dreams, we don't move forward in life, because as you go through life that you learn to like different things, or you push yourself. That's the other thing. Another quote that I really like and I say a lot is, once you stop learning, you start dying. If you're not growing or teaching yourself new things, you start to die. And I think that you see that with people that have their faculties, their mental capacity kind of erodes as they get older, because they're not challenging themselves to continue to learn and exercising the brain in that way. Maybe that there's some chemical or physiological things that really multiply that challenge. But if you continue to learn and continue to remember things and stretch yourself, that I think that you have a better chance of putting it off for as long as possible.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, similar in the fact, like if you continue to exercise the body, not some like, separate the body from the mind, you start to exercise the body. If you sit around and do nothing all day, every day, you're going to decay the body a lot quicker than if you kind of keep working at it and staying active. And then same thing with the mind. As long as you're keeping active and doing things like that, you kind of also elongate that process there.
Yeah. When it comes down to that, just that your mind will quit before your body quits. If you mentally don't have the drive to move forward and to push yourself, your body will quit on you, of course. But it's all in your mind. If you look at how the SEALs train, you look at how some serious martial artists train, fighters, it's all in that mindset. When you go into, I know boxing, I don't know what the range is for MMA, if it's the same, but it's like 10 weeks of training before a fight.
I think it's right at like 10 to 14 or something like that, depending on.
So what are you doing? You're challenging your body and challenging your mind, and you're building strategy. You're playing the fight over in your head over and over again for that time frame. You're playing that mental game. What if this? What if that? Sometimes you have to just go in and go, well, I don't care what if that, what if that, what if this, what if that. I'm just going to put my will on you.
Yeah.
And that's what some people do. So it reminds me of the Ali Foreman fights, Ali Frazier fights. Frazier was just a badass. I mean, the guy only had one eye. Because he had a ring accident.
Okay.
A sparring accident, so he only had one eye. Now, nowadays that would not fly.
Yeah,
they're not going to let you fight with one eye.
Yeah, because if you lose it, it's
then you're screwed, of course. But he had the determination that I'm just going to go out there and I'm going to brutalize you. And in one of the fights, I don't know which one it was, that he just kept pounding Ali's body over and over again, until the point where by the end of the fight, Frazier wanted to keep going, but his corner wanted to throw in the towel. And Ali wanted to quit, and his corner wouldn't let him quit. They're like, no, you got to go out there for this last round.
Yeah.
And in the footage, the archival footage of that fight, that Frazier's coaches, threw in the towel, and Ali's walking across the ring, and he falls down because Frazier just dehydrated his body so much by punching him in the body and in the hips that Ali couldn't walk. So had Frazier's coach not thrown in the towel, Frazier would have won that fight. I mean, that's the difference. But Frazier had the mindset he's going to keep going.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and watch that. That's impressive. I mean, not to go off topic, but I wish I got to see more, or I wish there was more like, hey, that dude is a heavyweight champion. Because nowadays it doesn't feel like we have too many of those. And again, this is kind of off topic, but there hasn't been, at least to my knowledge, it's like that dude's been dominant for a long time at heavyweight, at just being a monster. And I feel like I don't know what it is about that anymore that we don't have that, but it kind of is like not a depressing feeling, but I wish there was like that excitement of like, hey, we're going to go watch so-and-so fight because he's been, won like 37 matches or whatever it is. Like that just doesn't happen anymore.
Well, I think where that comes into context is that you have MMA, which can be a lot more exciting. But if you watch a great boxing match and the guys are just, you're going to get three types of matches with boxing. You're going to have a counter fighter that's just going to counter you the whole time, like a Mayweather. He's just going to keep, in and out. I'm going to hit you. I'm going to light you up. I'm going to get out. You're not going to be able to touch me. Then you got the guy that just brutalizes you. He just stands in there and he's going to get that hit. And when he gets that hit, then your energy meter goes down, like,
yeah,
like if you're playing video games. So, and then you got the guys that are just going to sit there and slug it out. Like, I'm going to out-muscle you. I'm going to out-power you. But that gets down to when we talked about the animals. when we talked about the shallot animals, that a tiger, two tigers fight, one of them dies there, one of them goes somewhere else and dies because it's strength on strength. So then the counter fighter is the leopard. He's using his speed to counter, the tiger. Tiger's going to come straight forward, angles coming, leopard's coming at angles. He's trying to be faster than the tiger, So
yeah, I never really watched too much boxing, but I think boxing is. Would you say boxing is more of a chess match than MMA is? Like there's more, not
no.
quite.
No, boxing is more about brutalizing. It's about how much punishment you're going to take and have the will to win. That's what boxing is to me.
Okay.
I mean, MMA, there's just so many different things you can do.
Right.
Because boxer's not going to have a good chance against an MMA fighter if in that rule set.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
if there's no rules, that boxer's going to light that MMA guy up with his hands, period.
Right.
Because the street fight, as we've talked about, is different than being in a ring. So, well, look at, was it Conor McGregor and Mayweather? How that turned out. Yeah, Mayweather just lit him up because that's his thing. And it took away McGregor's grappling and his kicks. So he only had his hands. Now they both made a shit ton of money on that fight.
That's besides the point, yeah.
Yeah, because it was interesting to watch, but it's like whenever you take one sport and impose it over another one, you're shutting off skill sets that you would normally use. You put Mayweather in an MMA ring, what's going to happen? It's like, yes, your hands are going to be good, but that MMA guy is going to shoot in on you. He's going to take away your striking ability. At some point, you're going to be off balance. No matter how great a counter fighter you are, you're going to make a mistake because this guy's going to shoot in on you. He's going to kick you. He's going to do something. You might get some basic knowledge on how to deal with that, but you're still not going to be at a point where you're going to be able to defend as much as you want. You're not going to learn 10 weeks. You think you didn't learn jiu-jitsu in 10 weeks, did you?
No.
You didn't get the blue belt and BJJ in 10 weeks, did you?
Not quite.
No, there's no way. So, but that's like you and I getting together. Like, I know you work on your hands and you work on your kicks. I got 20 years or, at least just from my Kempo experience. And that doesn't count all the years before working on my hands and my kicks and my strikes. So I'm going to approach the game differently than you would, and when you look at those 20 years, just solid Kempo, I'm still a baby in the martial arts. Like I'm not even a teenager in the martial arts. If you put it in perspective, like how crazy is that?
Yeah, that's insane. Yeah, I have, there are some people with a lot of experience, which is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, you look at BJ Penn, who got his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt in 3 years. That's all he did was train. I mean, that's just crazy. I mean, if it took him 3 years, that dude was training probably 5-6 days a week.
Yeah, I would say probably doubles, 5-6 days a week, probably.
Yeah, maybe doubles.
That's
easily. He was in there every day. No problem. Well, I mean, that's how I did when I got my Kempo black belt. That's what I was doing. I was in there 5-6 days a week, and I was training on the 7th day by myself. And I was doing training by myself during the week when I was outside the dojo. I just didn't let it just sit. Say, I got something new to work on. And then it just accelerates. I mean, why does it take some people 3 years to earn a black belt, and it takes some people 10 or 15? It's the amount of time and effort and passion that you put into it to get there.
Now, how do you relate all that to death?
Well, you got to go out and live life and not be afraid of death. No matter what comes your way, you can rise above a lot of that. You can't be afraid to die. because then we would never leave the comfort of the little bubble that's created. Now, I'm not saying to go out and be a dumbass and go out and put yourself in a really bad spot that, like some of these, I forget what you call them. They're not parkour guys, but they're, the guys that go out and they go on the top of the buildings and they
climb the high rises and stuff like that.
Without
the free climbers.
Yeah. And then they go and they like do handstands.
Yeah.
Or they do flips on the edge of the building. It's like, yeah, dude, I get it, but there's really no upside to that.
Yeah, that's.
And the downside's really bad.
Yeah, downside's pretty far. Yeah, I mean, you could accomplish the same thing with a drone. I don't know. You need to be up there.
Let's go out and do like a bungee. At least that there's some kind of safety mechanism.
Right.
Let's parachute. That's pushing a limit.
Yeah.
Or parachute with one of those squirrel suits, so you can fly around a little bit.
Yeah.
Do something like that. Or go if you want to go racing. Don't do it on the street. Go do it on a track.
Right.
Whether it's a drag strip or if it's, running around in a circle 500 times.
Yeah.
But what are we waiting for on that? If you watch a NASCAR race, what are we waiting for? A crash.
Yeah.
We're not seeing it how you run around in a circle 500 times.
Yeah. Waiting for someone to mess
crash.
up and go into the wall.
Like, that must have hurt. So, but I think that we have to accept death for what it is. It's not good or bad. It's just a part of life. Eventually it's going to happen. Now, you can, there are people, unfortunately, that have a bad lot. I mean, they get a bad pick. They have health problems for some reason, from outside or inside sources or hereditary or things. There's some doctors that feel that major challenges are not related to heredity, which was really interesting to think about. That they looked at things as stress factor. They looked at, how positive somebody was. Because, I mean, negativity can definitely create stress on the body. I'm into eating well, but I'm also about enjoying myself.
Sure. Yeah, my mom and I were talking about that the other day, of like pretty much anyone you talk to that is, I hate using the word expert these days, but that is very knowledgeable on the subject. They like everyone is in agreement. It's like alcohol is just not good for you, period. It's like, hey, I'm going to enjoy a glass of wine. I'm going to enjoy a beer. I like a mixed drink every now and then.
Right.
So it's it's the give and take, but as long as you're, and again, counteracting might not even be the right word.
No,
but
balance.
As long as you have a balance, there you go. That's the word. So,
Hey man, I admit it. I mean, I was young once. I was, 19, 20, even earlier than that. And, you drink a beer here and there. You scoff one out of the refrigerator from your stepfather, your dad, or your uncle. And, and you drink it and like, oh, this is kind of cool. And, as a teenager, you're like, hey, let's get some beers and chill out by the river, or something like that. And it's like, 6-pack's kind of cool. And yeah, I feel a little funny, but that's fine. It's like, you're not getting all nasty and sloppy.
Right.
But then it's like, yeah, I mean, you do have times that you just overdo it.
Right.
Maybe you're having a fun time somewhere and I'm just going to tear it on. And then the next day you go, man, I don't want to do that again. And if you learn your lesson, you don't.
Yeah.
Because what is alcohol? You're poisoning your body, just like smoking something. Whether it's tobacco or wacky tobacco, or maybe that's not the culture term for wacky tobacco.
Yeah.
Nowadays. But, it's cool to change your state of mind every once in a while. But what does martial arts do? What does music do? What does reading do? Changes your state of mind.
Yeah, it's just how far. I mean, I guess with reading and stuff, you can't go that far. But yeah, once you get to the point where, we'll say blackout, I guess is like that's well past the line. But yeah, I mean, it definitely helps to have like a perspective change every once in a while of like, okay, you know, I even find it more of just like a refreshing, like once a, you know, whenever, hey, let's go out with the boys and get some drinks. Like that's kind of a reset point to just relax.
Well, you're blowing off steam.
Exactly. Yeah.
You build up all this steam because you've been working your ass off, and you know, and that's what you're using. Some people do ice cream. The end of the week, you know, I had a roommate once that his thing was I worked hard all week. I'm gonna have a pint of ice cream because he didn't drink, he didn't smoke, he didn't do anything. So that was his reward for working hard every week. But what are you doing? Having your reward and be like, yes. All right. Well, I mean, that's you know, you got to reward yourself for all the work and effort. It's not just about getting the result that you want. That's great too, but you have to find a way to reward yourself, to give yourself that carrot. Yeah, you're not eating ice cream if you're trying to lose weight, but
yeah, apparently you can drink more calories than you can eat, so therefore drinking ice cream is the best way to put weight on, if you're curious.
And then you got those freaks that sit there and like stir it up so it's like ice cream mush. It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I don't understand that. But anyway, so yeah. So I think that I have a different perspective of death because maybe I'm a lot closer to 30 years closer to death than you are. But you miss those relationships. I know you and I shared a family member that was very loved and endeared to both of us. You know, as your grandfather and my uncle. And, you know, he was always a light spirit. He was always happy to see people. For me, and I don't know if he did this for you, he always have these funny voices and funny faces, and he would tell stories, and his face would always light up when he saw you. He was always happy to see people and interact with them. And he was such a people person.
Oh yeah.
You know, and, that was tough, man. It's still tough. Your uncle and I talk about that a lot, where we'll get moments, but it's like, hey, it's because we think about that person because we can't interact with them. We don't have that interaction because of the death of that person, and that's what I think you miss the most. You can't just call them up and talk.
Yeah,
to them.
Exactly. That's kind of what I was thinking as we were getting into it. Is like, it's funny, every time you start talking about death, you typically start moving into like stories, like we were just doing, like talking about what happens in that dash, and then it's more of a remembrance thing. And I think that's just our culture on it. I don't know. We'd have to get in someone from
what is
several different cultures.
Well, no, I mean, what is the English and the Irish and Scottish do? They have wakes.
Yeah.
You know, on the East Coast, it was, you know, at least growing up, it was very popular, you know, that you'd have a luncheon after a funeral. So you could get together and you could tell stories about the person and,
right.
You know, drink and share food and just maybe commiserate or remember that person and have that support process. You know, I haven't seen that too much in my later life. At least when I was on the West Coast and I've had friends that pass, it was not a big deal. Like, they would just have a service and that was it. They wouldn't have a luncheon after. It's really weird, like how the different coasts looked at it. And even in my own age group, I don't know if it's different for you nowadays, if they do it that way.
The last funeral I went to, I'm pretty sure they had a luncheon after the last funeral I went to. But I was trying to think, my friend, his family owns like a funeral service in another country. And he said they have like, it's basically like a party. They make it like a 3-day event. They have this thing. So it definitely seems like more people do a party style thing than not. But it is interesting just on coast to coast in the US that it's that big of a difference that they just kind of. Now, was it because I will say some of the funerals I went to, it was pretty much everyone just goes, does the thing and leaves. but like close family and stuff like that goes and does the luncheon. Was that situation on the West Coast, or was like they just
there was
dropped
nothing.
them in the ground and that was it?
There was no memorial like at all. There was no closure, which is weird for me because I mean,
yeah,
I think with the first funeral I went to I was 5 or 6 maybe. You know, it's kind of a lot to take in as a kid.
Yeah,
you know that, and then there was definitely a luncheon after or whatever, an after party. How funny.
But
Yeah. So, but you definitely get some closure there. You know,
Yeah.
I've gone to funerals my whole life and supported people during that and tried to be, you know, mix up the mood a bit. I mean, yeah, people are crying because, like we just talked about, it's the relationship. Yeah, that person meant a lot to me. But also, too, I look at things a little differently, too, because I tell people all the time, I said, yeah, that person's gone, but their spirit and their memory and their soul still lives within inside your heart. They continue to live on inside of you because that person influenced you one way or another.
Right.
No matter how strong the relationship is or what it was or the degree that they changed your life, they still had an impact that reverberates through your life of how you treat somebody else or you support somebody else. So, and I think if people would look at it that way, that maybe it would ease the burden that they feel.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, grief sucks. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, you're yeah.
but you could grieve over a lot of things.
Sure.
You know, I mean, you could grieve that you got injured, that you can't do this, you can't do that. I mean, I've definitely, you know, as far as in martial arts and training, you know, you get to a point that you have an injury and you have to heal from it. You can't, or you have to change how you train while you're healing from it. Or it just changes you drastically. But if you have the drive and the discipline and still have the dream and the goal and the passion and the fire to move forward, you will find a way forward regardless around that injury. So, and that's the funny thing to me because you have these martial arts, oh, you can't train if you're not 100%. It's like, when have you ever been 100%? The day you walked in the door.
Yeah.
The day before you came in.
Yeah.
Then you were 100%. You'll never, ever be 100% again if you're truly training.
Right, yeah.
You know, that's just a mindset. It's like that quote from Rocky Balboa. You know, life's not about how hard you get hit. It's about how hard you get hit and keep moving forward. Because, yeah, and to continue to paraphrase that, is like life will beat you to your knees, you know, if you let it. You know, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Wow, I must have just watched that recently or something. I mean, I guess if that kind of spoke to my core with that, that's a great speech he wrote. You know, even though it's a fictional thing, it's probably rooted in his psyche, you know, going back and looking at his career. And it's definitely a warrior's mentality. What are you going to do? Fold like a cheap lawn chair? No, I don't think so.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I don't think you even know about cheap lawn chairs. They used to be just like aluminum and have like these thin nylon strips. You know,
now they're rebranded as beach chairs and they're sold for $75 a pop.
Well, maybe they're a little stronger nowadays.
Some of them, yeah. Some of them are still, but I know, yeah, it's literally just aluminum tubing bent into a square and you sit in it and they fall apart.
Well, I guess still talking about that topic, you know, recently went through this with a friend. He had a niece that struggled. She had cancer and she continued to fight. And she was, from conversations that I've had with that friend and other family members, that child had a very strong light in her heart and hope of getting better. you know, it's just like when you change a light bulb. Some light bulbs last a long time, and some of them burn very bright in this world, and they have a shorter existence. But it doesn't mean that the impact that they make on this world is any less than living a full life. Some people live more life in a month than other people live in decades. You got to be willing to live the life that you want to live. Don't be afraid to live the life you want to live, because eventually that date on the other side of the dash is going to catch up with you.